We've got some fresh new young talent doing some things that I know you haven't heard before.
1, 2, 3, listen.
Welcome to Finances, your home for all things financial, investment, money and lifestyle. Hosted and curated by the very talented team of certified financial planners, Burke, Britton Financial Partners.
This is number 72 of the Finances podcast. With us today is Brad Papworth, Managing Director, and Michael Sodomaco. Got that right, Michael?
Well pronounced.
Strategy Director from Ivy Street, creative marketing and digital agency based in Geelong. North Geelong, actually.
Yeah.
You're out in the beautiful new hub out there, which used to be just a commercial wasteland.
Yeah, the Fed Mills. We've been out there coming up to 5 years. So we were one of the early tenants out there, and it's been awesome. We spent nearly 10 years in the CBD, and there's a few of our staff, just parking issues and a few things. We went out there, would never look back. It's awesome.
Just think across to 1916 for an afternoon lunch.
1915.
Oh, 15, sorry.
Yeah, we got now we got Valhalla out there, and they've done an amazing job. In terms of everything out there is just quality.
Yeah,
and the staff seem to enjoy it, and so it's a great place. I'm a bit biased, because obviously I made the decision, but the staff seem to enjoy it anyway. Yeah, Michael.
It's 2 k's away from home. It's got free parking.
I was going to say from Lara to North Geelong. You're in Lara, yes?
I grew up in Lara. I live in Geelong now.
Even closer.
I'm a couple of k's away from the office, which is nice.
But that Torquay drive through, did you come through?
Yeah, I habit kills me. I should go around the ring road, but I come straight through town. Takes me about 45 minutes now, with 100 traffic lights on the way through Armstrong Creek. But for me, it's a good way to unwind, or a bit of unwinding time, or thinking time on the way into work. So it's good.
Are you a podcast person in the trip, or do you listen to music? What do you do? Are you thinking about clients, obviously?
I'm more of a music man in the mornings, and then if I go any longer than an hour, I'll definitely put a podcast on. So, I love a good podcast. So, just to immerse myself in something. So,
You mentioned a podcast before we started. Who was it?
Howie Games.
Howie Games, that's right.
I've been on the Howie Games for a long time. So, he's terrific. Yeah, really good.
I've been listening to a little bit of. You heard Will Schofield's podcast?
Yes.
That was it's one that I've jumped on a little bit of recent time. Yeah, it's great. I love those sports oriented conversational podcasts. They're great. Yeah.
Yeah, and they sort of weave in a lot of different things. Like how he's got a lot of not just sports people now, entertainers, and it's good.
Yeah, he's the ultimate presenter too, and he's an ultimate professional. Yeah. Like the ability to be able to be conversational. I realise how hard it is when you start to have conversation with people. Sometimes it's really difficult to actually keep conversations going, but he obviously has some pretty talented people on his podcast, like I've got today, Michael, obviously.
You pointing to me when you say that?
That's right.
I'll try and live up to that expectation.
So let's always like to go back a little bit before we start talking about exactly what Ivy Street is and what they do. I mean, I mentioned that you're a creative marketing digital agency. Would that be the best way to describe you? Like if you're describing yourselves to your clientele or to the broader community, what do you do?
I'd say the best way to describe ourselves, we're a marketing agency that encompasses creative content, strategy. Yeah, so it's all encompassing, but marketing's probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah, Michael, would you agree with your boss there?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think the top.
He might not, but
actually, Brad, I think so. We're on the same page, obviously, with that. But I think the type of clients that benefit or that we work really well with, either they can come in and sort of select one of the services we offer, or if they come in and they're at obviously a size and a scale where they need all those services, having it all under one roof is a real advantage.
Yeah,
because the key with marketing is to be really consistent across everything you're doing.
Yeah.
And if you've got that sort of segregated across 4 or 5 different agencies for each service, you've got a heck of a job managing the integration between those agencies as the marketing manager or whoever it is within the business. So, yeah.
Now, that's not always the way Ivy Street's been, is it? Like you haven't been a multidisciplinary unit. Where did you start? Let's go back to 20-odd years ago when you started the business.
Yeah, when we first started the business, we were more around the creative advertising. And over time, obviously, we saw the industry change, and probably in the last 10 years, the big change with digital has been where we had to really evolve the business to ensure that what we were doing was relevant and kept remaining relevant. The old days of press advertising, outdoor, they're still there, but they don't play as big a role in that mix as what, so the area Michael looks after in terms of performance marketing, that's just become so big. It's probably the biggest shift I've seen in the industry in the last 10 years. It's just gone so quickly. And as an agency, we had to make sure we stayed relevant with our clients. Otherwise, our business would have eroded and probably diminished over time if we're just stuck with traditional creative.
Before I get to the definition of performance marketing, and you can explain that to me as a novice, a little bit more on the backstory of Ivy Street. So was it just you? Did you?
No. It was originally started by two other guys. One who was a creative director with a large agency in Melbourne, made the sea change back in, I think it was about 99, 2000, and another fellow who I'd worked with over a fair amount of time at Divisions of News Limited, and they went out together and started with five staff, I think it was, in Drysdale. And then they'd sort of over the first 12 months had realised they needed someone really to focus on that business development. That's where I'd cut my teeth. I came into the business sort of 12 months after they'd started. Yeah, over time, we grew the business from there. The other guys, I'd slowly bought out over time to sort of where we are today as, I'm the sole director. But yeah, the different sliding moments through the business and their lives as well. The other directors are a little bit older than me. So yeah, we just, evolved the business and grew it and they went their own direction. So
you went to, whereabouts did you go to uni?
I was in Geelong and I was a uni dropout.
Yeah.
I talk about this a lot with school groups, that I probably took the unconventional path to where I am today. And I tell this to a lot of kids that we do talks with St. Joey's a lot. And I say, not every path is linear. And I'll put my hand up. I was probably one. I finished year 12. I went overseas. I was restless, didn't know what I was going to do, came back, I was going to do a business degree, and then things changed. I ended up in property. I got out of that, went into media, ended up working in Melbourne for a division of News Limited called Pacific Publications and Magazines, so PMP. Cut my teeth there in media, and then I was doing night school at that particular point, studying my degree. Again, got to a certain point through that started the business. So started Ivy Street, had 2 subjects to go and just ran out of time. Just got time poor, didn't finish. And the 2 subjects, ironically, are business, I think it's organisational management, and one other one. So
could have been nice for you to finish it, Brad.
Yeah, it could have been. Yeah, look, it's a regret, but I also look back and I go, well, has it hindered me? No. I'm an avid reader. I know Michael is as well. I'm a massive reader and really try and draw a lot of inspiration other than just university. I felt that I learned a lot of life lessons along the way. Made a hell of a lot of mistakes and still do. But yeah, it's a regret. But I also go, well, I probably wouldn't be where I am today, maybe. Or maybe might not have taken the risk to go and open my own or start my own business with the other guys.
Yeah. It's funny, I think back to, mine's not linear either. I went via health science and nursing and oncology through to financial planning. I think that, but the lessons learned for myself and for a lot of the small business owners that we deal with, very few of those pivotal lessons in their life come from their secondary or tertiary education. It comes from those real world experiences where your boots on the ground, having to problem solve, deal with stuff in real time. The sort of strategic business growth element of the business, is that always something that you have gravitated towards? So have you been sort of less boots on the ground in terms of the dealing with clientele and much more at the business growth and development space?
No, that's probably, look, business development's always been at the heart of what I love to do. And probably up until the last few years, I've really been boots on the ground. But as the business has grown and we've been able to put in good structures and good people, I've been able to step back from that a little bit more from the day-to-day operations. But it's always difficult. I always get, there's times where you get pulled back into it, and I love dealing with some of that, but I also know that it's not the greatest thing for the business either for me to be in there. And so I'm really, really enjoying now. We've got an incredible management team, an executive team, Michael included, our general manager, head of client services, creative director, and our head of digital, that really drive the business day to day. And it allows me to sort of take a broader view on what's happening in the future and where we need to go and what we need to do as a business to stay relevant. That's our game, is like probably any business, but in particular in the creative industry, it's remaining relevant because it's so fast, moving, especially at the moment.
Yeah. We better address you, Michael, in terms of the fact that you outdid your boss and you completed your bachelor degree. So you finished your uni degree, a bachelor in business in management. Is that right? And marketing at Monash?
Yeah, so I did double degree at Monash. So yeah, a little bit more linear, though, I guess, than Brad's path and your path, Jade. But yeah, still had the same kind of, I got to the end of year 12 and didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. And really, in the end, two things happened. One, the Gruen Transfer, the TV show on the ABC came out. And I really enjoyed watching that, and I really enjoyed the psychology side of it. So when they're talking about the impact that ads have on people and how they, if you use the negative connotation, manipulate people or how they influence people, I really enjoyed that kind of side of it. And then the other thing was everyone else in my family, mum and dad included, and I'm one of 4 kids. Everyone went to uni. Yeah. So that was kind of the done thing in my family. So had I have had, an older brother or something that had done a trade and things like that, I could have been tempted to go down that path because I really wasn't, 100% set on what I wanted to do. But I ended up, going obviously ahead with the marketing side of things and sort of pursuing that. The management degree I did as a bit of a bonus while I was there. It was 1 extra year to get the double degree, so I thought I'll tick that off while I'm there. But I got to the end of it, and that final year, that 4th year, and I was ready to get out of uni. I did it at a real interesting time. We did, to give you an idea now, obviously, and Brad's touched on the digital kind of transformation of the marketing industry. I did one subject at uni that was called e-marketing, which was basically digital marketing. Yeah. And so I kind of sort of realised...
What year was that?
Oh, this is going to test me. So I think I finished school in 2009. So it'd be around that 2012, 2013.
Okay.
Yeah, sort of time.
10 years ago, they weren't teaching digital marketing essentially at all.
Yeah, and I mean, unis are, they're pretty heavy sort of bureaucracy, aren't they? So they're pretty slow to adapt and move. So I was kind of looking at it and going far out, and we were presenting things. Like I remember we did one subject that was, we had a real life client and we basically had to deliver, respond to a brief and deliver a product. And I remember ours was pretty heavily around digital and social media marketing, things like that. And the lecturer at the time sort of stamped on it and said, well, no, give me the evidence that social media is the way you need to go. And we're sitting here and this is one of the great flaws in the marketing industry. People and marketers are the worst at this. Classify marketers as one group of people and customers as another group. And these customers are so radically different to us that we need to go and spend a lot of money trying to sort of work out how they're different to us rather than just understanding that we're customers as well. So, Hey, we're all using social media. Like it's a big part of our life. If people are on it, we should be on it as well as brands and things like that. So, rather than stick around and do a master's or do something like that, I was pretty keen to get off into the workforce. So, and like Brad mentioned, get some practical sort of lessons. Yeah.
Talking about the sort of practical lessons, and I mentioned to you before the podcast started, trying to look at some comparatives of the financial planning industry and marketing. And one of the things that we've done pretty poorly as an industry is actually give people a bit of a peek under the hood of what we actually do. I mean, this nebulous term of financial planning, what does it actually mean? And if I'm honest, that same historically for me, it has been in the marketing space. What actually is marketing and what is digital media? For someone like you, Brad, that you've been fortunate enough to be in that industry, but as a business owner who wears multiple hats, that idea of, where should I invest? What time should I actually give to this? It's a long question, but marketing and branding, what is it? And you mentioned, I think in some of our emails back and forwards, that what is basic marketing and branding theory? What is it?
So I think it's funny, exactly right. I think a lot of people sort of jump into answering this question and go, yep, it's, advertising and it's all these kind of things. I think it's really important to put it into context of, say, really, really basic top line view of the business. So all businesses at some level, whether they're producing, manufacturing or they're, delivering services, have a series of inputs. Then there's some internal operations that then generate or turn those inputs into outputs. Then you need someone to go and buy those outputs to then fund buying more inputs. So marketing's role is kind of between that output and the customer stage. So it's that link between the customer and the business. And that includes, obviously, the really obvious one that everyone thinks of is the advertising. So, yep, that's obviously a big part of it. But there's also the feedback loop that then goes, hey, we're, not quite where we need to be. We need to adjust our inputs and our operations to produce an output that's a little bit closer to the customer. So at a really top line level, that's what it is. It's the link between the business and the customer. And that gives you a really nice lens to then go, the biggest problem a lot of small businesses have is there is infinite opportunity and really finite resources. So you need a system to be able to prioritize things and cull some options from your list. If you take that lens, then what allows me to form that strongest link with my customer? That's what I should be prioritizing as a small business. Brands are really misunderstood part of marketing. And look, I'm hand on heart, really heavily influenced by the Ehrenberg Bass Institute. So if anyone really wants to do some more reading, that's a really great resource to look up. There's some books they've got out. They've also got some free, available resources on the website. And they basically take a bit of a marketing science approach. And this is sort of one of my criticisms of university. There's a lot of sort of theoretical discussion and things like that doesn't actually translate when you go and test that. It doesn't actually translate into results.
Can you give me an example of that? Something that theoretically you saw in your days at uni that just did not translate in any way, shape or form in the real world?
Yeah. So a lot of the uni stuff is based on really big business stuff. So there's some elements of, that's fantastic. If I had a marketing budget of a couple of $1 million, no worries, I can go and do that. You get into small business and it's like, right, I'm a one-man band. I've got to do this myself. So there's just the scale of things they talk about. But then to give you a really classic one, there's the general kind of belief, and this sort of invades sort of everything, is that you need to be unique in order to have a really strong brand and sell lots of product or services or whatever it is. You actually don't need to be unique. It's very hard to be unique. Let's take two really big, well-known brands, Nike and Adidas. Fundamentally, they sell the same products. They market themselves in very similar ways. Like you're talking, big sports ambassadorships, sponsorships of big sporting events. They've both got sporting brands. They've both got lifestyle brands. Their colours are black and white primarily. Even the way they advertise and things are very, very similar. They're not actually that different, but they're both distinctive, and that's the key. So rather than concentrating on being unique, Ehrenberg Bass, and this is one of the things that they really push, it's just about being distinctive. And that is because brands, and this is the thing that a lot of people probably don't understand, brands exist as memory structures in people's brains. So the whole purpose of building a brand is so that when they're in a position to buy, they remember your brand, and then they're more likely to
Britton
purchase
financial partners.
That's it. Yeah, time to throw in a plug here, Ivy Street. And that's the whole aim of what building a strong brand does. And then this is it's a really little sort of passion area of mine, so we can get easily sidetracked down.
Get sidetracked, mate. So, you can go as long as you like on this. I love it.
Yeah, and so brands, if we acknowledge that, so brands, memory structures within the brain. The role of marketing is to build those memory structures, and if we adopt the associative, say, network theories of how brand memories or how memories are stored in the brain. And that's basically, you think of it a bit like a spider's web. So the number of associations that you can build with the brand and then the strength of those associations, what happens when something triggers it. So let's take Cadbury, really strong association with the colour purple. You might have a really strong association with a gorilla and the drums.
Yeah, because that's what I thought straight away. Yep.
Exactly. So the whole idea of that is if you think of something, and gorilla and drums probably not a great example. Let's say the colour purple. So you run into the colour purple and you're feeling a little bit hungry or you're feeling a little bit snacky, that then triggers the thought of Cadbury. And then you're more likely to purchase Cadbury if you're in the supermarket and things like that. So that's basically how it works. And you're trying to build all those associations within the brain. And the breadth and the strength of those associations you build increases the chances of your brand being recalled versus a competitor's brand when people are in a position to buy. So that kind of provides a really nice sort of framework. The reason why we want to do that is because it's a decision-making shortcut. And so the whole purpose of branding is to make purchasing your brand a no-brainer. So it's really easy to purchase your brand because consciously and subconsciously I've got all these sort of associations that are triggering memories of the brand and influencing my decision. So for instance, let's take, say, like Burke, Britton Financial Services. If you've got someone that listens to every single podcast, then that will be building associations in their brain around obviously the topics that you're talking about, but then also, say, the depth of service you're offering. They might have a personal opinion on yourself as the host of the podcast, and then you get all those really nice sort of connotations like the trust, all those sorts of things. So not only when they listen to the podcast are they building those memory structures in their brain. So when they're in the market for a financial service, Burke, Britton gets chosen over whatever other businesses are around. They're also influencing the purchase decision because there's a level of familiarity with you. There's they've got all these other things that are really positive, and that then increases the chance of them buying. It makes it easier because they've already got all this knowledge about the brand. It makes it easier to purchase.
Well, what's interesting, what immediately comes to mind when I'm thinking about this is that those things that you talk about, I think I know intuitively, I know that we're building connections with clients. That's why we're trying to do it. But what is lacking, I'd say, in this business and other small businesses from a marketing and branding point of view is consistency. And in financial planning parlance, it's like having a plan, like having a defined plan with targets and measures and something to actually aim for, rather than it being quite scattergun. And this probably goes to the point of, limited resources in small businesses, is that you tend to be, like you said, Brad, like you're wearing multiple hats. You've got limited resources. And I think for a lot of small businesses, the challenge is saying, where is that point of entry, or where's that tipping point where it's worth me saying, hey, I've got to get some support here. I've actually got to get some alignment outside of me, someone that can look externally at my business and the opportunities that exist, the inputs through to the outputs. For a small business owner, like where, from experience and where would you recommend that people make that point of entry into doing something, engaging someone like yourselves for marketing and branding?
Well, I think to your point is it's understanding what's the priority for you. Obviously, Michael's mentioned the big brands. They still use external agencies because they understand that they want to take an external lens to actually execute. They'll deliver the plan and the branding and everything. And this is probably, sidetracking a little bit, but to Michael's point, the biggest thing that underpins these brands is consistency. They're not just in and out. We'll turn the tap on, we'll turn the tap off. The tap's always on. And the other thing is there's nothing in isolation. There's no one thing that is a silver bullet in marketing it's getting the sum of all the things, doing them really, really well, identifying what are the best channels to your customer, and then getting those all firing really, really well, because customers won't just engage in one thing, whether it's a podcast or social media. They will see your brand in the more places they see your brand, the more they'll start to associate it. As Michael said, they'll build memory structures and go, I saw Burke, Britton here, I've seen it here, I've heard it on a podcast, I've seen it on the side of a bus. So those things start to build these prompts as they're going through their buying cycle, from awareness through to purchase.
So people should get upset when they do their first Instagram post and only get one like.
Correct.
Yeah, incredibly common.
Yeah.
What am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
Well, and this is a really harsh truth, is that people really don't care about brands that much.
Yeah.
So that's the really hard thing for the small business owner, because the brand is their life. Like, this is their business. They're working in it every day. They're thinking about it. They're going to bed thinking about it, waking up thinking about it. Other people don't. And that's the same for every brand. So
I think it's the same in life. People think that people are thinking about them a lot more than they actually are. People are very self-interested and want a solution or want an outcome or want relationships that impact them. Like, it's the what's in it for me mentality, which is just human nature. I love the psychology of what you're talking about, because as a small business owner, again, it's stuff that I think I would know intuitively now that you say it, but putting a framework around that in this business or any small business and saying, hey, here's the plan to actually address that. You mentioned something about success, or the success of a campaign or a business in marketing. How do you actually measure the success of a brand, of a campaign, of marketing? How do you do it?
Yeah, so easier with some things than others, and it's led to one of the great misunderstandings, I guess, in the industry. So the great strength of digital marketing is it's basically come along and said, hey, we can measure just about everything. So we can measure how many people are clicking. We can measure what they're doing once they get onto the website after they click the ad. We can measure how many people are then submitting a lead. And then, depending on CRMs and all those kind of things, you can then determine either a revenue figure or, if you're e-commerce, you can get that revenue figure directly. So easy to measure that kind of performance marketing. The brand marketing becomes a little bit harder, because whenever you talk about brand, you're talking about building memory structures that, if you don't do anything, fade over time, but there's a bit of a lag effect. But they also take time to build. So you're always looking at it sort of a longer term lens. And like Brad said, that they'll be hitting you in multiple different touch points. So it's very hard to attribute this particular bit of marketing has resulted in this, because it's going to be the sum of a lot of different things. So the long-term brand measure, and this is where it gets hard for small business, there is a bit of a leap of faith that needs to be taken, is, say, for a big, large business, you're looking at, say, market share and market share growth and things like that, and share of voice within a market. That's kind of, when you talk about brand, that's what you're ultimately looking to impact.
How do you measure share of voice?
Yeah, so look, it's a really tricky one for small business. If you've got an idea, I guess, of competitors' budgets, and there's some digital tools you can use to do that from a digital sense, but then probably look, realistically, large companies are off engaging research companies to do that as well. So there's small business is in that unique spot where does have to be a bit of a leap of faith. That's one of the tricky things, because you're just not realistically, you're not going to have the budget to go and commission that kind of research to work that out. But you'll get a sort of a gut feel, I guess, looking at there's ways you can sort of check out what other competitors are doing online and things like that, and get a gauge of how much they're spending. And then you can sort of benchmark yourself against that.
Yep.
That would be kind of the best way I would do it. And that's the great learning about working in small business, is it's kind of boots on the ground sort of stuff. And that's that university. Yep. Hey, go and measure your market share growth. And then great, we've got this beautiful figures and all the time in the world to sit there and make decisions. And then you get into small business and you're like, it doesn't really work that way. Like,
yeah.
A, this is one of 15 things I'm trying to manage today. And B, I don't have the resources to do it. So how can I get 80% of the result with 20% of the effort and enough to make a decision?
Or I actually don't have the measures in place or the ability to measure the effectiveness of it. I have no ability. I mean, the amount of money that we've spent over the course of 20 years on stuff that I would not know, I couldn't quantify whether or not it's actually been of any great value or not. Again, intuitively, I think that some of the connections with clients and with what we do, but that ability to actually measure the success, I think, is a challenging one, but it's an important one for any small business or large business, obviously. On the business front, the types of clients, without talking specific clients, but the types of clients that Ivy Street looks after, like who are they? Are they one-man bands, small business owners to medium business owners? Are they larger corporates in Geelong and nationally? Who do you look after?
All of the above. Yeah, it's a real mix from smaller, one-man band or your small marketing teams to corporate government. But where we really see we add value as that full service agency is if they have got a small marketing team that really want to lean on an agency like ours to help them deliver on their marketing plan or business problem that they're having. But it's a really broad spectrum of clients. So like we've got recently picked up a global based client that we're working with on solving a problem. They've signed up to a B Corp, and we're working with them on helping them work through some solutions on that. So that's a big undertaking for them globally. So it's a real mix, but the majority of our clients would be in that what I'd call small to medium-sized businesses, where small marketing team rely on external consultants to help them deliver on their business objectives. Yep.
When you say a full service practice, let's talk about some of the specific services. I'm just looking at your team. You're a team that's sort of 20 or 30 strong. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, about 30. Yep.
Talk about what are the specific areas inside the business and services that you guys offer to those small to medium business enterprises.
Yep. So starting with obviously our client service team. So they're really our front of house, working with the clients. So we've got a dedicated account service team that will work with the businesses, and then supporting them, we've got a full creative team. So designers, creative content, so content creation, Michael and his team. So from a strategic point of view, and really Michael's team are again at the pointy end of starting with a strategy, making sure we've got a really strong strategy that then delivers down into all the other key components. Performance marketing, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, and down into some of those executional things. Michael will talk about performance marketing. And then we've got a digital team. So in terms of building out online from websites and so forth. So when we talk full service, there are still components that we need to build in as well. Like, we don't have a photographer on house. So there's little bits and pieces that we'll pull in as we need that come under our umbrella on a needs basis. So
performance marketing, we've mentioned it twice.
Yes,
Michael.
buzzword.
Yeah.
So, well, it's a really easy way to define it. We've chatted about brand, and obviously that's looking at your long term and building those memory structures. Performance marketing is sort of opposite end of the funnel, I guess. So it's people that are ready to buy now, and we're trying to get them to take action right now. So really obvious ones, say like Google search. So people are typing, hey, shoes for sale, Geelong or whatever. Bang, we want to be there, showing ads there to try and get people to purchase through those stores. So, it's about encouraging people to take action. We largely specialise in sort of that digital area. So Facebook and Google being the two big ones. So between those two, you've got roughly about 92% coverage of the Australian sort of population, and YouTube, I should say, between those three. But then also, the newer ones, so like your TikToks, your Pinterests. I mean, Instagram falls under that Meta umbrella, under that Facebook umbrella. So look after sort of all those platforms.
Is performance marketing encouraging the engagement? Is it at that point of sale right there, like a transaction at that point, or is it consider, like I'm thinking about from a financial planning point of view. I forgot to tell you guys that this is a free consulting conversation for Burke Britton. Not really. But the engagement for someone like myself, when clients engage with us, is a fairly long one. There's not a product that's actually purchased off the shelf or online immediately. How does performance marketing work in that context?
Yeah, so it's a really good example. And we've got a number of clients in the property space who have a similar really long lead cycle, I suppose, like anywhere from 12 to 24 months sometimes, which is a really long time when you think about it. The key, and it's something to remember, is that at any given time, regardless of whether it's a really long buying cycle or whether it's a really short one, the people you're talking to, about 99% of your people you're talking to aren't going to be in a position to buy now. Performance marketing is then looking at that, 1 to 2% of the market that are ready to buy now and going, right, I want to convert that into sales. So then I've got some money I can reinvest in helping, I guess, move the people that aren't ready to buy right now, or, like we talk about brand marketing, build up those associations in the brain so that when those people do enter that buy now phase, they're likely to remember us. So digital platforms, you can do a bit of both. So they have different campaign styles or setups, I suppose, or goals is probably the better word for it. So you can be doing, lead gen or your e-commerce, your sales, generating sales through those campaigns, but you can also do some awareness activity as well.
And that's a bit of the beauty of what we've been able to develop within the business is with the content team, they're about building awareness, so that real top of funnel activity. So brand, again, starting those memory structures and then working through that buyer journey to when they're ready to purchase. That's when, Michael and the performance marketing team really come into it, and it's like, okay, you're ready to buy now. Here it is. So
that performance marketing has obviously been hugely impacted by technology and the innovation of technology from when you graduated. Obviously, of recent time, very recent time, AI is obviously a hot topic. And you mentioned, Brad, about having to evolve in business. What sort of evolution are you guys seeing you're having to make? Or what's your prediction about how it will impact your world over the course of the next 1 month, 3 months, 5 years?
It's already top of mind. We probably have fortnightly in our executive meeting conversations around AI. What's the impact? Where we're seeing the biggest impact is around efficiencies. It will never replace, I don't feel it ever fully replace human beings, because you're relying on what information's already out there. So, we still need creative people to be actually having input. What it's going to do is help us just be a lot more efficient. And, look, speed to market is a massive factor in our industry. With technology now, things have got, I think back to when I first started in the industry and this sounds a bit archaic, but the creatives would create, they'd put it on a disc, it would go off to a production house, they would create proofs, if we're talking print advertising. So there was a whole process, and now it's just straight to market. We can get to market so much quicker, and I think that's going to continue to happen, and AI is going to really assist us in terms of speeding up that product to market and just making us a bit more efficient. So we've got to embrace it. I think the more people I talk to across multiple, industries, and whether it's financial services as well, it's impacting everyone, and we just got to get on board. I've always had a theory that if we're not embracing it, we're not remaining relevant. We're not doing the right thing by our clients either.
Yeah. So you'd say that you're by and large optimistic about
yeah, I think anything like that. It's different people have got different opinions on it. Like I suppose their head of digital has a great phrase. He said the genie's out of the bottle now. I think they've let it out, and Michael's probably got a different opinion, but I feel the genie's out of the bottle, so they can't put it back in. Now we've just got to embrace it, and how do we work with it, and how do we look at areas of AI that can really benefit us? Rather than focus on the negatives of it, let's look at the positives and how can it help us.
You're ahead of your time at uni, Michael. What's your view on AI and the impact on your industry?
I'd stop short of saying I was ahead of my time. I think Brad's hit the nail on the head to a certain degree. I think fundamentally right now what it is a productivity tool for experts. So the thing to remember is that the tools are largely accessible by anyone. So anyone can use it. So it's not a tool that me and you are using and no one else is. So what an amazing advantage we've got over everyone else. It's actually just a tool that everyone else can use. So if you look at, say, marketing is a competitive industry. You've got to be not just performing well, you've got to be performing better than your competitors. So in that, the fact that everyone's got access to it automatically just means, all right, well, it's not the strategic advantage that we think it is. and you still need expertise to use it. So it's really good at generating output, but like Brad said, it's mimicking stuff that's already been put out there. That doesn't necessarily mean that the stuff that's already been put out there is good or the best or what should be what you're putting out there as well. So there's people who jump in blindly and use it. There's a risk there that they're putting out the wrong thing, or it's just not as good as it could be. And then a competitor seizes that opportunity and then away you go. So fundamentally, it's doing the same thing that we've always done. It's just doing it quicker. So if we talk about, say, from a content perspective, because that's the most obvious one, you can punch in a prompt to ChatGPT and it can churn out a 2,000-word blog in 15 seconds. So fundamentally, what we've always done is we've tried to, when we're writing blogs, is we've tried to work out what people want to know about and then write an article that really gives them some highly valuable information that answers their questions, because then obviously all those positive thoughts and the helpful and the trustworthiness and all that kind of stuff flows back through to our brand, ranks really well in terms of SEO, so people are reading it, more visitors on the website. That's essentially the purpose of what we're doing blogs for. We still need to know what people want to read when we're writing that article, whether we're using ChatGPT or not. All we're doing is outsourcing the actual writing. So if we enter that prompt into ChatGPT, that churns it out. We still need to be proofreading it and going, no, that paragraph isn't what we need to adjust it, which takes the same level of knowledge and skills. So it's not a shortcut. It's not a shortcut to the strategic thinking. It is a shortcut to the content production. And it's going to be really interesting to see that play out across. So ChatGPT obviously is a sort of a written word. It's a language processing model. It's going to be interesting to see, like, say, Midjourney and all those other ones that do it across different mediums, I suppose, so images and videos and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be interesting to see that play out.
Yeah, I saw, is it DALL-E? Is it the ChatGPT visual generator? And I described my wife sitting on the couch with a coffee, hair, the dog sitting next to her, coffee, and I, within 30 seconds, spun it around and it was pretty spot on. It was, and again, for me, I think about it constantly in my world. To your point, Brad, it's a tool of efficiency. It definitely is, and that has a positive and a negative. The positive is that it actually expedites the process of delivery of products and services and advice for us. The negative from a personnel point of view is that it obviously puts pressure on whether or not some of the functions that are performed by human beings here remain that case or remain that way over the course of the next 12 months, 5 years, 10 years. I don't know, but I think for sure the focus on relationships and the importance on, like you said, Michael, that everyone's got the same tool. Like if you give everyone the same tool, then it becomes like who can outperform, like who can actually add value in other ways, who has got the strongest relationships, who can add value above and beyond, who can actually understand their clients more and what they value. We did a recent survey of our clients through the Bedos Institute, and it was interesting seeing, maybe for the first time in a long time, what clients actually valued versus what we thought they wanted. And it's then about actually taking that and being able to put it into some form of action that sees you delivering on those.
Still needs a lot of human intervention, because it's the old garbage in, garbage out. You can use AI, but if you're not giving it the right prompts or you don't know what you want, it's not going to deliver you the end outcome. It'll spit something out, but it might not always be the best thing. So we think from a creative sense, the human factor is still going to play a massive, especially with creative and design and that type of thinking, it's still going to need a massive human element to it to create unique ideas.
Now, I might close out. I think we're going close to an hour now, but just in closing out, if I circle back to the small business owner that's out there and thinking, hey, I know I need to do something. Where do I start? Where do they go? Who do they engage with? How do they get in touch with you? And maybe what's their first course of action? What's the first step they actually take in terms of engaging someone to sort out their marketing plan, their digital plan?
I think, well, I'll answer it quickly, but then I know you'll jump in, Michael. But I think the biggest thing is understanding what the problem is.
Yeah.
They've got to identify that they've got a problem. Is it a marketing problem? Is it an awareness problem? What is it first? And then I think then it's about engaging the agency. And that's where we really come in and add that value to say, okay, what is the business problem you're trying to solve?
Okay, just on that, so I said before, sometimes it's very hard as a business owner to see the forest for the trees and to even identify the problem. Yep. If you had to pick some of the problems that small business owners come to you with, what are they? Like, I'm sort of relating this to my world in that most clients come to us with a single point of entry of a problem. Yep. And it's not until they actually sit down and actually see the breadth of the other related problems or opportunities that sit around that original point of entry. What are the things that people come to you with or business owners come to you with in terms of problems initially?
I can probably jump in here. So the first one, the really obvious one, is a lack of time. So they sort of know what they need to do. They don't have the time to do it. And the second really obvious one is a lack of either skill or resource. So skill in terms of, say, like for instance, with our creative team, they just don't have graphic design skill. And that's me to an absolute T. Like got some good ideas, can't translate it onto paper in terms of design. So that's what they'll outsource, that one particular skill. The other really, and then in terms of like the other sort of aspect, I guess, of like a skill is, it sounds a bit bad, but just they've got, say, like a basic understanding of marketing, but the really common one with the small business is they have either got a really scattergun approach and they're getting scattergun results and they're just a bit overwhelmed, or they're on that hamster wheel where that next big thing, there's always someone spruiking that selling system that works in any industry and all those kind of things online, and so they're paying for little ebooks and things like that, and that all promise the world, and there's that lure of, there's a way I can do this and then just scale it up and I don't need.
So they're constantly in tactical mode with no strategy.
No plan.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And that's kind of the big thing. And that's where I would just encourage people to come and have a conversation and just go, agency might not be for you, but at least get an idea of, here's what we kind of think we could do, or here's what you guys can do. You actually don't need us. You've got a really good thing in place. You just need to streamline and kill a few Bambis, shoot a few Bambis, I suppose, because that's the really hard thing. Like, you do some things and you get really attached to it, and sometimes it's not the best thing you could be doing. So,
but to your point too, Jay, is we get some businesses do come to us and go, we are just too close to this. We need someone that's got an external lens that can come at it really fresh, because they're in the weeds day to day. We've got a couple of clients that have got their own internal creative teams, but they've come to us to go, we need to take a massive step back here and get an external lens on this to go, well, what should we be really doing? Because we're so self-absorbed in what we're doing day to day. So, we get a real variety, don't we? But again, the problem could be different, but it's understanding that you actually do have a problem, and then we can pick that apart with you and work with small businesses. So Michael and his team starts really with Michael and his team, and they'll sit down with the business and really absorb themselves in that business to understand the business, and then look at that problem, and then other things might come up, or the problem might actually not be what they're seeing. It might be something completely different as well.
Sounds like a counselling service, Michael. Is that right?
It's funny. So every single one that sort of comes through the door, you start from the same spot, which is, personally, there's always that little bit of a unknown, a little bit of anxiety, because you're like, I don't know this business right now. And so it's just really is getting in there and learning the business, and then, like Brad said, identifying where the critical levers are and go, okay, here's something that if we get that right is going to have a really big impact. Let's concentrate some resources on that and see if we can solve that problem. So, it's good fun. It's great because every business that walks through isn't the exact same. There's some core kind of marketing things they need to tick off, but how you execute and all those kind of things is different from business to business. So it's never 2 days are the same, which is great.
So if people want to get a hold of Ivy Street, where do they find you, Brad?
Well, they can go to the website, so ivystreet.com.au, or you can jump onto LinkedIn and find either Michael or myself on LinkedIn, and that's another great avenue to get in touch with us. But love to talk to anyone out there. So
we're on all the socials as well. So
all the socials.
Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. So
no worries. We'll make sure we link to all those in the show notes. Okay. Hey guys, it was awesome to have you in today. Thank you. Appreciate your time and insight into all things marketing and media. Super insightful. I'm sure a lot of our clients and listeners out there will gain a lot from it. So again, thanks for the chat. Look forward to maybe a round 2 at some point in the future. Thanks again.
Thanks for the invite, Jay.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate it.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you're keen to understand more about how financial advice could benefit you, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Burke Britton FP, or Google Burke Britton Financial Partners. Check out our client reviews, testimonials, and make a time to meet one of our certified financial planners by clicking Book Now on our website. Thanks for listening.
Any information contained in this podcast is of a general nature only. No account was taken as to the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. Therefore, before making any decision, listeners should consider the appropriateness of any information with regard to their particular objective, financial situation, needs, and seek independent advice from a licensed professional specific to their circumstances.
All right.
That translates to don't be a moron and act on what some random person says on a podcast. Take personal responsibility, do your homework, ask questions, and speak to an actual human that knows what they're talking about before you do anything. PB Financial Solutions Proprietary Limited, trading as Burke, Britton Financial Partners, are authorised representatives of AMP Financial Planning Limited, AFS, licence number 232706.